Welcome to DN Arts Learn to Draw Lesson 1. Today we'll be learning about negative space. This is the first lesson in our Learn to Draw series, and over the next 3 lessons we'll be learning some basic tools that will help either the beginning drawer or someone who's been drawing for a while but is not comfortable with their drawing skills to be able to pick up the tools that are going to make a big improvement in how they draw. And the reason for that is because we're going to learn to see in a new way. Usually when a person sits down to draw an object or a person, they draw, but they draw what they think they see. And one of the most important tools in learning to improve your skills as an artist is to be able to draw what you really see. So we are going to train our eye today. Now, first of all, you need to make sure that you have the proper tools. So we're going to be needing a ruler. We're going to need an eraser, and I recommend either a white eraser or a gum eraser. Probably the white eraser is going to be the best for this project. You need a piece of paper, white paper, that's cut to 6 by 8 size, and you also need a piece of black paper cut to 6 by 8. And most importantly, you're going to need a pencil, a good drawing pencil. If you have a set of drawing pencils, you'll be using your HB for most of our beginning lessons. HB means hard black, and it's right in the middle of the pencil sets of what they're able to do. It's a good beginning pencil to work with. If you don't have a drawing set and you don't have an HB pencil, a number 2 school pencil will do the job. Now we're going to look at negative space. Well, first we need to know what negative space is. Negative space is the space that surrounds an object or an image or an area of interest. And positive space is the area of the work in your art that are going to be your subjects or areas of interest. Now if we look at the lily on this page, we're going to see some brightly colored yellow petals with orange inside. If we look at this area, this is considered our positive space. If we look at the black background that it's sitting on, that's considered our negative space. Now, if we can break up our space into some geometric shapes, it helps us to be able to begin to position the lily on the page accurately and to create accurate size petals. So before we begin to draw, we're first going to take our 6 by 8 piece of white paper and fold it in half horizontally. Make a nice even crease and then open it up, and we're going to fold it in half again vertically. And then open it up. Now you can take your pencil and you can mark the top and bottom vertical line and the left and right horizontal line to show where the center of your paper is. And this will help us to be able to correctly position our shapes, our negative space shapes, on the paper when we begin to draw. Well, before we move on, I suggest that you print out figure 2 from the lesson. If you scroll down past the video, you'll see the lesson plan and you'll see figure 2. And in figure 2, we've taken the lily and broken it up into some geometric shapes, numbered 1 through 6. I have a nice rectangular shape for number 1. It's a nice pyramid triangle for number 2. Number 3 is a little stubby triangle. 4, we have a kind of a trapezoid, and 5 and 6 are triangles. So if you print that out, we're going to do some folding that will help you when you try to decide how to make your boxes. So take a moment, print this out, and then come back and join me. I'm going to fold the lily in half horizontally and vertically, and I will make sure that my centers are marked all the way around the lily. All right, now we're going to take a look at these boxes and triangles and see how they're positioned on the paper. When we look at figure 1 along the top, we can see the line does not come to the center of the page. It's probably an inch or so over from the center. So when we draw our first line and our second line to create that box, and I'm going to grab my ruler. So your first line is going to follow along the top of the paper, but I'm going to leave a little room away from the center. So I can draw my first line using my ruler right along the top. Now before I draw the second line, I need to know how far down the page is going to go. Well, if I look at the center of the page, it's up quite a ways from the center. So I'm not going to want to drag it all the way down to the center horizontal line. I want to give it some space. So I'm going to guess it's about like that. If I want you to see what I'm doing, I'm going to use a marker, but you use pencil because you're going to need to erase. So I'm going to create a stopping point for my vertical line in that first box that I'm creating. And then I can just bring it over to the edge. And I'm going to use my ruler this way so I can see the shape that I'm creating. I want to try to make sure that it's even on both sides. So there's my first box, number 1. Now I'm going to continue to look at the spaces on either side of the horizontal line as I create my triangle. Now I can see first that my triangle begins in the corner of box number 1, and it's going to come out, but it doesn't come out as far as the edge of the box. So when I create it, I keep that in mind. I also have to see about how far down from the center line it goes. So if I were going to make some guesses, I might put my target dot right there. And now I can line up my ruler and begin to create that triangle. Now when I look at the second line, it comes almost to the bottom corner, but not quite. So when I begin to make the last line in this triangle, I'm going to bring it over, but not quite to the triangle. And I'll call that box 2. I'm going to work my way through this lily, and I'm going to create those shapes 1 through 6 until when I finish, I have the lily shape on the inside, but I've created it through drawing my negative space. Now another little fun tool that you can use to check how well you're doing is to take your drawing and flip it upside down, and then take your lily and flip it upside down. Look at your shapes again and go back and make any corrections that need to be made. Oops, and as I look at this, I probably want to change my box number 4 because to me it looks longer and flatter than the box over here. My number 3 I like, 2 I like, 1 I think looks pretty good, and 6 looks pretty good, but I would change box number 4. And then when you've made your corrections, you can flip it back around. So that's how we can set our lily up to begin to draw. And when we draw, we're not going to leave it looking like this. We're going to begin to put in the real shapes of the lily and draw it more accurately as we see it. But now looking at the negative space around it, there's some blacks in here. Oops, I better use my marker again, or you're not going to see this. So I can begin to more accurately draw this. I'm going to look at those negative spaces as I put my petals together. I'm going to look at the black and see the shapes around it. And it will help me in drawing my lily. Next, we'll take a look at figures 3 and 4. If you like, you can print them out and you can fold them horizontally and vertically to be able to find your centers and mark the horizontal top and bottom, left and right, and the vertical top and bottom spots. And now what we're going to do is we're going to divide figure 3 and 4, either one, up into some geometric shapes. I have two different versions because in this one, this is our positive space and this is our negative space. And over here, this is our positive space and this is our negative space. You may want to look at them different ways to help you to be able to see better where your geometric shapes are when you are drawing. Now, I'm going to move this one out of the way for the moment, and we're going to work with a piece of white paper that's cut in roughly the same dimensions as the example. And I am going to take a nice marker so you can see this. And I'm going to look for some geometric shapes. Now, it's a little bit harder with this composition. The shapes aren't as clear. So I'm going to have to press it a little bit. All right, let me take my ruler. Over here, I see a square. I'm going to put a square in along the top of the vase. I'm going to run my ruler down the side so we can see where it ends. Okay, and on the other side, I see another square. This helps to define this box shape right in here on the top of the vase, the positive space of the vase. All right, so there's my first set of geometric shapes. That's probably the easiest set in the whole vase. Now, if I look down here and I try to define what I have for a shape, I do have a square, but a square with a semicircle cut out of it. So let me do that. I'm going to draw my semicircle and use the ruler to establish the bottom line all the way across on the vase. And there's my shape. It's an unusual geometric shape, but it is kind of a geometric shape. All right, on the other side, I'm going to do another semicircle, and forgive me for messing it up just a little bit here. I'm not working with a pencil, so every little mistake will show. I can't erase it. I'm giving you a general idea of our shapes. So these might be shapes number 1, shapes number 2. All right, now we get up into this area, and if we were doing the positive shapes, we would have 3 nice stars to draw. But since we're drawing the negative shapes, I have to look in here and see what I find. Well, I can kind of fudge on a triangle or a corner shape that maybe goes circular, a piece of a circle. That could be shape number 3. And then as I get up into here, there's another triangular shape. Better use my ruler to make it a little more accurate. I have a sort of a triangle going into this area, shape number 4. And there's another triangular shape in here. And I can put a square in, or a rectangle in this area. Okay, and over in here, another one of those little semicircles. And maybe another triangle, a broken triangle over in here. So I've divided the vase up into 8 areas. So now as I begin to try to draw my flower, I've established basic dimensions of where I'm going. And I might want to change some lines, round that vase out more. And you can shade it in if you like to help you to better see the positive shapes now in the midst of all that you just did. We'll shade in what's not a part of our negative space. Over here I might have to add a little bit. And then, now I need to create my stars. I'm just quickly going to do this so they're not going to be beautiful and even, but just for the idea. And shade it in. And there we've pretty much been able to correctly position our drawing on the paper by using our negative shapes. And there's the base. Now remember, we're not doing this to pull together a beautiful art project right now. We're just learning some basic skills that will help us when we really do begin to work on some more beautiful and pristine projects. Okay, so what I want you to do is to do the same thing. Begin to find your negative shapes in figures 3 and 4 and draw it. We have 2 final exercises in the practice of negative shapes. If we look at figure number 5, I have some real basic geometric shapes. These are going to make it a lot easier for you to position them on the paper. What I want you to do is get a piece of 8 by 10 paper, and I want you to look at your negative shapes, your negative spaces, as you're beginning to position these shapes, the circle, the trapezoid, the oval, and the arrow on your paper. I want you to shade in your negative shapes or negative spaces when you're done so that all that's left are your positive spaces. So take a few minutes and set that up. When you're done, flip it upside down and see how well you did. In our last exercise, what we're going to need is a piece of black construction paper and a piece of white drawing paper cut to the same size. Basically, maybe a 6 by 8, or however large your hand is. You want to be sure that you can place your hand fully on the paper so that it's not going over the edges. So take whichever hand that you don't draw with. If you're right-handed, use your left hand. If you're left-handed, use your right, and place it on the paper. And put it in a position. You can scrunch it up, you can keep your fingers together, you can spread them apart. But if you spread them apart, it gives you some more interesting negative space between the fingers and around the sides of the hand. So while your hand is firmly planted on the black paper, what you're going to do on the white paper is to take your pencil and draw the negative shapes that you see. And when you're done with that, you should have a number of negative shapes. This was a nice easy one for me. There was a triangle in the area around my thumb. There was another triangular shape in between. And when I come up to the top here, I have a problem because the triangle loses its shape. I could put in another triangle, or I could carry it out and do a box. And I ended up doing a small box. Then you can do the triangular shape between your fingers as an elongated triangle, or you can shorten it and put in another trapezoid. However you see that space between your fingers, that's how I want you to draw it. And when you're done, color in the negative space areas around your positive space. And when you're done, you'll have the drawing of your hand. So what I recommend after you finish this drawing is to go back and repeat these exercises Or if you feel like you've pretty much covered what you want to with them, find other things. Look in magazines, find pictures, maybe pictures around your house, and begin to look at the negative space around the positive figure. As much as you can, practice drawing things by seeing the background. And keep practicing until you feel very comfortable with this. And when you're ready, and only you can decide when you're ready, when you feel like you've mastered this as much as you can right now, then I would ask you to post some of your work online so others will be able to see what you've done, and that you'll be able to look back at it later and see how much you've improved. And then go on to the next lesson. Thanks for joining us for Lesson 1 in the Learn to Draw series.